Ketan Mehta and National Film Development Corporation of India presents Mirch Masala. Namaste, I am Grishma and I welcome you to the IndiCineGlitz channel. Set in colonial India, the movie begins in a village where some women have come to fetch water from the river. Just then, the Subhedar, a village tax collector appointed by the British government, arrives there with his henchmen and starts terrorizing the women. The women run away in panic, but a brave woman named Sonbai stands up and tells the Subhedar not to pollute the village's drinking water with their horses. Impressed by her courage, the Subhedar asks her for water to drink. She gives him water and leaves. Sonbai's husband Shankar is lazy and dreams of getting a job in the city. So Sonbai is the sole breadwinner in her family. They don't have children, but she loves her husband dearly and is happy in life. On the other hand, the arrogant and power-drunk Subhedar has created terror in the village. His henchmen break into any house, take away the villagers' goats and chickens, and run people over with their horses. All the village dignitaries, including the village head Mukhi, are busy flattering Subhedar and try their best to keep him happy. One day, when the villagers gather in his camp to pay their respect to the Subhedar, he shows them the gramophone. The villagers had never seen such a thing before and were fascinated by it. But Subhedar's servant accidentally breaks his record. Subhedar then beats him black and blue. The villagers watch him being beaten in silence, but no one dares to say a word to Subhedar. Such is his terror on the village. Just then, the village's school teacher, who is a Gandhian and supporter of Swarajya, brings an injured child there and complains about stampede, theft and injury of the child by Subhedar's henchmen. On which the Subhedar, along with the villagers, make fun of him and drive him away from there. Also, when Subhedar is invited as the chief guest at the village festival, he orders Sonbai to be brought to him for the night. But the villagers mistakenly bring another woman, but he beds with her anyway. Meanwhile, Shankar gets a job in the railways, so he has to move to the city. Sonbai forbids him to go, but Shankar doesn't want to give up such a good job and leaves for the city, promising to call her there soon. She is sad at his departure. One day, Mukhi approaches the Subhedar and requests an exemption from the village tax due to drought, which he refuses. Frustrated, Mukhi returns home, but his wife Saraswati, who is angry with his adultery and being out every night, doesn't allow him to enter the house. Mukhi is debauched and doesn't care for his wife or family at all. He gets angry and leaves from there. Saraswati wants to send her daughter to school at the request of the village teacher, but all the women of the village condemn her and ask her to teach her household chores instead of sending school. But she is adamant about educating her daughter, so she ignores them and sends her to school. But according to the patriarchal society of that time, only two tasks were prescribed for women: to take care of the house and provide heirs. Raised in this culture, Mukhi doesn't like her daughter going to school. He drags his daughter out of school and threatens his wife to never send her school again. He also justifies his adultery by calling it the pride of manhood, on which Saraswati gets helpless and can't do anything. One day, Subhedar tries to misbehave with Sonbai by blocking her way, but an enraged Sonbai slaps him and runs away. Unable to bear this humiliation, the Subhedar orders his henchmen to bring her to him. Sonbai somehow escapes from them and reaches the spice factory, where all the women of the village do the work of grinding red chilies and spices. Sonbai narrates her ordeal to the woman and the watchman Abu Mia of the factory. The watchman then decides to help her and locks all the doors. Subhedar's henchmen arrive there and order the watchman to open the door and hand over Sonbai to them. But the watchman flatly refuses and declares to protect the woman till his last breath. Subhedar gets furious when his orders are not followed. He summons the owner of the factory and orders him to hand over Sonbai by any means. Obeying his order, the factory owner tries to trick the watchman into opening the door, but the watchman senses his master's deceit and asks him to leave at once. Meanwhile, the men of the village are busy merely discussing the matter. When the factory owner fails, Subhedar summons Mukhi, the village headman, and asks him to persuade Sonbai to come to him voluntarily so that there will be no bloodshed in the village. Mukhi says that the matter is very serious and he will have to talk to the villagers first. Subhedar then tells him to persuade the villagers as well, insisting that it will benefit all of them. Mukhi goes and holds a meeting of the villagers and informs them about the Subhedar's demand. The villagers decide to hand over Sonbai to the Subhedar without further delay, but the teacher advises them not to tolerate the Subhedar's tyranny anymore and fight with him. But the villagers are scared of the Subhedar and the government and instead beat him up for raising the point. They all go to Subhedar and tell him about their decision to hand over Sonbai to him, but with the condition that next time he will not make such a demand. But Subhedar scoffs at their demand and asks them to bring Sonbai to him quickly. Seeing the cowardice of the men, Mukhi's wife Saraswati gathers the women of the village and asks them to raise their voice against this injustice. When Mukhi and the villagers head to the factory to bring Sonbai, all the women of the village stand in front of them and strongly opposes their cowardly decision. But men get angry with this. They beat women and keep them locked in the house. Meanwhile, the women in the factory are scared and worried. The watchman tells them not to worry and continue with their daily work of grinding spices. A woman even asks Sonbai to agree to the Subhedar's demand and avert a crisis in the village. But Sonbai refuses to bow down and says is ready to face any consequences. Mukhi comes to the factory and tells the village's decision to the watchman and asks him to hand over Sonbai. But the watchman again reiterates his decision and says that he will defend the woman's honor till death. Mukhi then asks Sonbai to surrender and accept the Subhedar's demand. The villagers also ask her agree to his demand so that peace will be restored in the village. But Sonbai says she would rather die than surrender to him. Mukhi then tells her to be ready and to face the consequences and leaves. Hearing this, now the women in the factory also start blaming Sonbai and ask her to immediately go to Subhedar. These women and apparently all the villagers blame her beauty and her self-respect for all this trouble. But no one is blaming the Subhedar's nefarious intentions and the cowardice of the villagers. Hearing their taunts, Sonbai asks what's her fault in all this. But the women are not ready to listen to her anymore and ask her to leave. Frustrated, she tries to leave, but then the watchman convinces her to stay. Just then, a pregnant woman there starts having labor pain. The women get busy with the delivery of the baby. After a while, the cry of a child is heard who happens to be a girl. The villagers inform the Subhedar of Sonbai's final decision. He then takes matter into his own hands and reaches the factory with his henchmen. He threatens the watchman that if the factory door is not opened by the time he counts to 10, he will break down the door and barge in. But still, the door doesn't open. Subhedar then orders to break down the door. His men follow his order but are confronted by the watchman Abu Mia, who stands with a gun and opens fire on them. But Subhedar's men shot him dead, whereas Sonbai is ready to defend herself with a sickle in her hand. Subhedar enters the factory alone and slowly starts walking towards Sonbai. But seeing Abu Mia killed by Subhedar's men enrages the women, as Abu Mia was like a father figure to them. Enraged women then start showering red chili powder on Subhedar, one after the other. As soon as the pungent spices fall on Subhedar, he experiences severe agony. A wave of intense pain runs through his body. He tries to get out, but spices keep raining on him, which makes it difficult for him to move. His pain gets worse. Sonbai slowly approaches him. Her face shows both a smile and satisfaction. The village women teach the lustful Subhedar a good lesson and punish him for his misdeeds. The movie ends with Subhedar screams. So this was our favorite movie of the day. If this movie is streaming in your country, then I'm sure you will definitely watch it. Do tell us your opinion in the comment section and don't forget to like, share and subscribe our channel. Take care.